that within a reasonable period of time, we're going to see some path. And so the notion that we had is, recognize if we can provide some capital, and that capital, those capital, it's unrestricted money that, the city can direct at its discretion. It's not sort of targeted to any particular fund, but perhaps there could be something out of that bucket of capital that could help sort of provide some sort of subsidy for some type of use, or if there are community groups that want to do something. I just, again, I don't want to restrict my own or anyone else's creativity around this, but
Okay.
So let me stop you there, and if I can just ask one more question, and it'll be real short, and this is to Paul. I was looking at considering the other day, if we were to do like a pop-up kind of a temporary, kind of arrangement, do we have the rooftops in that area? Do we have the population in that area that would really benefit from, a nice temporary neighborhood additive of something that's foodies, or something that's, different, interesting to go and walk to, that, they can take public transportation to. I don't know how many people are living up at Cal State right now in terms of students, but I would think, this is my gut, I would think that something like that would pick up rather quickly. I don't know. What do you think?
I can't comment on whether we have the exact number of rooftops and like a consumer demand population count, but what I can say is I do believe that there's something there in terms of activation for a temporary food use. What that looks like, whether it be something more of the lines like a traditional food truck gathering spot with some tables, or something more robust where we create a food pop-up and invite local, and this is what Charles and Justin and I kind of and Sarah brainstormed, was try to create a place for some of the Hayward businesses that are struggling, some of those that don't have, unfortunately, just don't have the parking area or the street frontage to create outdoor dining. For example, just off the top of my head, the gentleman from Just Potato Salad, right, just further north of that site, he has no space for outdoor dining. And as you know, while indoor dining is allowed in 25%, it could be an opportunity to create this amenity where we invite, some food vendors, or even, what you're seeing in Oakland along Lake Merritt, for better or worse, you're seeing, a lot of interest from the community to create pop-up retail and pop-up food spaces. So I think there is demand for that. Mission alone, just the traffic that Mission carries, I could see ample demand for such uses.
Okay.
All right. Mark, okay. I could walk to the place from my house, so I might do that. Okay, Councilmember Mendel.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have a couple questions for Mr. Del Vaccaro. First of all, I want to thank you for coming, and thank you to Paul for making that happen, because I wanted to follow up a bit on the viability of hotels in Hayward in general. And I know you had some thoughts on this and some insights. So not so much focusing on this site necessarily, but just the viability of hotels in Hayward long-term, the amount of time it might take for that market to recover, for new construction and that sort of thing. And if you could repeat some of what you said and maybe expand on it from the previous meeting, that would be very much appreciated.
And that was my other question. Thank you very much, both of you. So Mr. Del Vaccaro, can you comment on that?
I just went straight to the food, but I'm just saying.
So thank you, everybody. So for full disclosure, I was hired by the city of Hayward about, 18 months ago to do a hotel viability study on the Foothill property that the city might inherit on Foothill Road, the excess Caltrans. So at that time, I had a very positive view of the world in terms of hotels, that there was a shortage of hotel rooms, looking at vacancy rates across San Mateo, Oakland, Tri-Valley, Castro Valley, Hayward, and Walnut Creek. Prior to that point, I had done 4 hotel land deals in the previous 2 years, representing cities of Walnut Creek, San Ramon, selling excess corporate yards, and both sold. One's a Hampton Inn in San Ramon, and one's going to be a 120-room Garden Hilton in Walnut Creek, which closed, by the way, in July despite COVID. So so I don't sell hotels per se, but I do the underwriting for some of the major developers and preferred chains that look at hotel sites. And my conclusion on Hayward was that it was a viable hotel market. It was the crossroads of San Mateo, Oakland, and Tri-Valley. It's a good in-between spot for a business concept hotel, 100 rooms plus, and it made sense. So that same analysis would apply to Mission Valley back 18 months ago. So, but again, in agreement with the owners, the hotel market is different today, badly different. It takes 62 to 70% room occupancy to break even. Hotels are averaging 25%. And this is a business concept hotel, I imagine. You can correct me, Justin, or whoever, if it's not. And business concept hotels require business travel. And now with Zooms, like meetings like this, why fly from LA or New York? New York just reinstituted a quarantine, by the way. So if you come from California specifically, they named California, and I don't know what that means, but if you were to do a business trip to California, you're quarantined for 4 days. So that's going to inhibit business travel in general. Zoom is replacing business travel temporarily. The question is how long this lasts. No matter what happens tomorrow night, the COVID situation, I think, lasts minimum of 9 months to a year. What does that mean in English? Until there's a proper vaccine that people trust and would take, there's not going to be a lot of travel. So airlines are asking for a major subsidy because they're only averaging 40% occupancy on the airlines. So, and some airlines like the big three, I bet two go bankrupt in the next year. Well, that's a direct correlation to business hotels. Then the next correlation is restaurants. So restaurants, which might take 25% of their product or their customer base from hotels, you know, if you go to a business concept hotel, you don't usually go there for the food. You go next door to a restaurant on your way to a meeting. And so again, that's one reason why restaurants are hurting.
So if I may interrupt you just briefly there, Ed. So I think we all appreciate the short-term impacts, and while we may not have your,
How long will it last?
But I'm sort of like trying to look ahead. Let's say 24 months. You know, does the viability of hotels in Hayward rebound in your informed and expert opinion, or is this something that is more likely to be permanent?
I don't think it's permanent. It's just a matter of when. So, you know, time kills. So is it 2 years, 5 years? I think definitely we're going to go through a cycle. So I think somewhere from 3 years plus, the hotel market comes back to the East Bay and Tri-Valley and Hayward.
3 years plus.
But who dies before then?
Say that again.
Who suffers before then? Meaning who owns the property? Who pays the cost of the property?
Sure. Okay, so I appreciate that. I mean, I'll invite Justin or Charles or Ken to comment on that if they want to.
Well, let me follow up with the question. Given that situation of we don't really know, but we don't think the hotel market is gone forever. And, you know, this had been a viable site, partly because there is, you know, also a state university right up the street. And so what, as far as the property owners, what would your plans be for this site in the longer term? If we, you know, we talked about ways we could perhaps activate it and use it and without having too much money invested in that temporary use. What are your feelings about trying to see that this hotel, and I know you're not the same people as the people who are developing the hotel, but what are you know, what are your intentions regarding the property in the long term, in the longer term?
Well, and I guess if I will chime in only because you know, I'm guessing it was directed toward me, but just I don't know if this is translated all the way through, but as we recall, like at least from the NLC Meritage standpoint, we entered into a transaction with Manchester Hotels, and Ken Patel is here with us. We'd like to connect with him. After we got, you know, when we had the project, they were with us through the design of the project and the entitlement of the project. Subsequently, they closed on that land, and so they now own it. And they went through a subsequent process to secure all the final design approvals, get their franchising done through Marriott, went all the way through that process. So up till recently everyone's intent has been to see through the project that was designed and entitled over a 2-year period. So I think right now, the Manchester folks, because we've spoken a lot and they could reinforce this, they're trying to figure out what that future looks like. I
So
mean,
is there someone here from Manchester?
yeah, Ken Patel I see his name on here.
I see it too. Can he talk?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yellow bar going under his name. So, there you are.
Okay.
Hello, welcome.
So, good afternoon, all the members of the Economic Council Committee and the mayor. I'm representing Manchester Hotels, and I've been hearing a lot of conversation, and it's very interesting, and I know everybody wants to know what's going to happen to the hotel market. Just a little background, we are a really small company, but we've been very successful in the past with the hotel development. But this COVID was something that's completely unexpected. I mean, we can all say that nobody thought in March that it's going to even go through the end of this year. But as you can all see, the impact of COVID, I really don't personally think, from my experience, that we really don't know how this COVID is going to impact our lifestyles, the way we do our business, the way we communicate, the way we travel. And the Zoom comment that was made is so true. So I think what's happened in the hotel market, and this is just my personal experience and my contact through a lot of people that I talk to in the hotel community, is especially our hotel is designed for corporate customers. I think there's a huge destruction of demand. And I don't know if we have really appreciated that. And that's what I'm really nervous about. The occupancies in the corporate market has, it's maybe 35, 40 in that range, maybe a little less depending on where you are. And because of that, because what's happening with Zoom and how quickly we can, execute documents, I've done that with DocuSign and all that, we just don't have to travel that much. And that's going to change the way we live our lives and the way we conduct our business. And for anybody to say today what the demand's going to be looked for 2 or 3 years, I'm just telling they're just taking a wild guess. And for us, it's very important that we are a small company, that when we do invest, several, $20-30 million in a project like that, even more, we have to be sure that it's something that it's viable, because we are going through and trying to restructure that and work with them and say, hey, we want to survive and things of that. So we have to be careful. So that's my point of view. And from my experience, to say the market will come back in 2 years or 3 years, I hope it does, but I cannot give you, or anybody can give any level of assurance that that would happen. So that's the difficult part. And, until we know, how the vaccine and all that is going to ease the people in traveling, it's just going to be very difficult to make an assessment today. And I just want to make sure that we keep that in the back of our mind. And remember one thing, it always takes longer than we think when we do something, and it always costs a lot more money than we budget for. And that's what I'm most nervous about right now. And that's why we are very concerned, because we have existing hotels. And in fact, we're just finishing a construction of another one. And we are so worried as to how this thing's going to play out. And if somebody told me you'll be do 50% occupancy when you open, I'll take it today. But I know nobody can tell me that. So that's the concern that we have right now. And I want to be very honest about it, that, we just cannot make a commitment even 2, 3, 4 years until we know how things play out. And right now it's extremely difficult for anybody to make a good assessment on that. And I'll leave it.
Do you plan to hold on
So
to?
Mayor, if I could just.
Go ahead, Al.
Thank you. So, Mr. Patel, how long does it take to build the hotel when you
Well,
start? What's the construction time? Start to finish.
It ranges anywhere from 18 to 24 months, to be honest, depending on several factors. You know, sometimes when you're building, and we've built several hotels ourselves, and sometimes you come across issues that you have to deal with, and that delays it. So it's between 18 to 24 months, give or take.
Yeah, a couple of years, which makes sense, which is, you know, we're starting to get into the time where COVID is going to be, the effects of COVID are going to be waning. So I want to kind of put, and I don't want to be too mean about this, but back to Mr. Del Beccaro, you know, the comment was made that any speculation, you know, of what of a potential recovery in the market in, you know, 3+ years is, I think, wild speculation was the term that was used. I don't know if you want to respond to that. I'm not trying to pick a fight here. I'm just trying to, if you can back it up a little bit, I'd be interested to hear more.
I think everybody has their opinion.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bell.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bell. I'm asking Mr. Del Beccaro.
At the end of the day, remember, I'm just a broker. Number one. Number two is I'm an optimist. I think my name's not on any loans on a hotel, so I have to qualify that. I think after the COVID vaccination becomes real in the next 2 years, people start coming back to normal. The world's not ending, and I think business concept hotels are needed as a concept. And I think Hayward, East Bay, sometime in the future, is going to be a viable market. So, you know, if I could predict 2 years or 3 years, I'd be rich as hell, because I could predict, but I can't.
Sure.
That precise. But I think the long-term view for hotels is, I think there'll be casualties during the interim. Several operators are going to disappear. There's going to be a congregation. There's going to be a contraction rather in current ownership. But I think long-term it comes back. And with that precise year, I can't say with certitude.
Yeah, and the study that you did before, and I'm assuming the confidence that you have that it will recover is in large part based on the large industrial base and the large business base that Hayward has and the surrounding city spillover. And it's not like we're reliant on vacation travelers, this in recreation. This is all based on, you know, the businesses coming back and people needing to travel for business and getting back to that at some point, right?
Right. San Mateo and Santa Clara, Silicon Valley is still prospering despite COVID. And over time, you know, if I wanted to stay by the airport or downtown San Jose, this was now, we're talking a year and a half ago, you were paying anywhere from $300 to $500 a night. So if I'm paying $300 to $500 a night, maybe I could go further away and pay $150 to $250 a night, whatever the price point was to make it work. So therefore, that's where hotels in the Oakland airport, that's where hotels in Fremont, and that's where hotels in the East Bay. You know, and we've had some other double whammies. I mean, Concord was actually using hotel rooms for Napa Valley. You know, instead of $500 a night in Sonoma, you stay in Concord for $200 a night. Shuttle people up to the wine. So tourism, until tourism comes back, because the problem with business concept hotels is weekend traffic. So use tourism of some shape to do the weekend. Then you have business travelers. So until business travelers are coming back, it's at that point. But I think it comes back. When, I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you. And I have more comments, the mayor, but I'll hold them until after public comment.
Okay, I'm going to open this up and ask if there are any of the attendees present and who would like to make a comment. I don't see anybody. Suzanne?
Hi, Todd. I'm still on my call, but you can talk.
Call me, I have the answer. I see one hand raised by Meredith Walker.
Yeah.
I'll
Okay.
allow her to talk. Meredith, do you have anything you want to?
Hi, hopefully you can hear me. Yes, I am a resident of Mission Crossing, and I am very concerned about the property staying vacant. I'm also concerned about these pop-up that you all are talking about, because I'm concerned about the additional traffic that would have, you know, that would interrupt us, the homeowners. I'm also concerned about the, the lack of access that we're going to continue to have if you don't build, or because right now we only have an entrance way into our property via one way. And we're being told that, as you know, that the other way of coming in, I think off of Torrance is what it is, it won't happen until everything is complete. And this 1 to 2 to 3 to 5 years extension is not good as far as a resident. I'm concerned with all of these different options that you all are mentioning. The number of people that you're going to draw into our community is a concern. And I understand, yes, we are in COVID, that a hotel does not seem, I guess, likely right now, but I think we as a community are looking for something a little bit more complete. And we are also concerned of the fact that if the city allows the home builder to occupy the empty spaces, as opposed to holding them accountable to their original contract that you had of 100 units and waiting for something to come on the lot, then what is the, it loses a lot of steam. If they're allowed to have full occupancy, then having something built on that empty lot is not as important to others. So there are a number of concerns with us here from the community, and I'm very interested to hear what you all are going to come up with. End of story.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I just saw another hand go up, Susie.
Yeah, that's AJ. You're unmuted, AJ.
Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
I guess everybody says that. I share a lot of Meredith's concerns. I'm also a homeowner over there in the area. Additionally, I'm from Hayward, so I have a few other concerns. I'm from over just across the other side of the proverbial tracks over there. And I think I share all of her concerns. But an additional concern that I have is with the vacant lot there, I know that we wanted to have a hotel, and Mr. Patel, I understand, I've run a business for a while. I understand, it's hard choices when you make investment decisions. But I think the bigger picture to me for what we do with that land is, how is that going to help like the people of Hayward? You know what I mean? Like, how is it going to help? I mean, I can think about my neighborhood and what I can do for, how I can live there and all that good stuff. But the business owners, like the hope for the hotel was to have, more jobs come in, more people going to Hayward stores, more people going to Hayward restaurants and stuff like that. And I just don't, if it just stays a vacant property, all that's going to happen is you're going to have more vagrants over there, which is what we're starting to see. Obviously, you're going to have more vagrancy, and you're going to have just less for the people of Hayward. So I kind of like the idea of the pop-up stuff in terms of it being a creative opportunity to provide something for people who live there, and that's just my comments there.
Thank you. And we have more. Go ahead.
Okay, let's see. I will unmute Ashish. I'm allowing you to talk.
Hi guys. So in addition to what Meredith and AJ said, so we do have one park which is coming like in the middle of the unconstructed property and the 19-inch lots that we are having. We would like to know whether that would be accessible to the residents. Additionally, there are some parking lots available, and that is not accessible as of now. That is the concern that is the challenges that residents are facing. Those are the guest parkings. Thirdly, because of all the retail business and all, we would like to know if it is possible to have make this as a gated community for us, we are facing have certain concerns related to security, certain vehicles coming from the outside, and the kids are playing in the area. So these are the three concerns that I have as of now.
Okay, and I'm gonna go to the other person who has their hand up right now and see if there are more questions. And then after they're done, we'll see if the developers of the property have any response to some of those comments. So the next one is
Mayan.
Mayan. Yeah.
Yeah, hi. I'm also one of the owners at the community as well. And I want to say I really enjoy the thought of having a food truck pop-up shop. I don't have a huge concern. The only concern I have is, yes, having a lot more traffic come through the area. Is if we think of a temporary pop-up shop for the fact of it being vacant, will we also consider management of that pop-up shop? Will we also invest into how do we manage the area? And will there be people to ensure that there's also no additional like trespassing and things like that that go on with something that we make pretty public? So just wondering if that's something that we're also thinking about if we're thinking about temporary solutions. That's it.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think first I'm just gonna go ahead and ask the developer to just answer the specific question that I think it was Ashish about the access, that is not open now, and the park, and whether some of those things will be finished anyway.
Mayor, if I might answer, because I think it's going to be a lot easier for me to answer, because this is sort of based on safety issues and concerns from our own city staff and the state of the site. It's not really up to the developer of the project site. So, they've submitted their bonds to do on-site improvements. They've submitted for building permits. They've pulled those building permits. The site is an active construction site. The park or central open space has been finished for quite some time. It was one of the first things that was actually done on site. I mean, we are always pushing developers to make sure amenities are available in sync and in tune with the development of housing. And that's exactly what they tried to do with this community space. It's been complete for quite some time. The bigger issue is that the site in and of itself is not completely safe. The secondary access that they talk about, the access to the park, it's not safe to provide access because we're still dealing with an active construction site, because there are still buildings that are in a construction state that are near these areas that are by the access points. And so until it is complete and it is safe and those improvements have been approved and accepted by the city can't release and allow those areas to be open to the full public. And they wouldn't be able to do so until, the buildings could get finished that are near those secondary egress, that are near the community park and open space. And those are some of the final buildings that have yet to be constructed. And they can't construct those because we have a condition of approval that stipulates that they cannot, build those and receive certificates.
Okay, we do understand that. And I think understand that what you're saying is it will be if all of the residential is allowed to be built, it isn't contingent on the hotel site being.
That is correct. That is correct.
All right,
Yeah, there's no contingency to the commercial, but the balance of the residential needs to be complete before the city can accept those improvements and allow those areas to be open to the public.
Okay.
Or to the community itself.
Okay, thanks. Now, I did see another hand pop up, and I don't think I actually closed public comment. So I'll go ahead and call on Cesar Paez.
Go ahead, Cesar. I unmuted you.
Hi, how you guys doing today? Thank you for allowing me to speak. I am currently a resident in Mission Crossings, and I'd like to say that, it's a beautiful spot. I understand where Mr. Patel is coming from. But as a local resident, just my concern is that on the premise of how my residence was sold was in the premise that having a hotel, with all the homes open, access to the park, access to the farmland, access to, you know, the barbecue area that's on site, came all in one package. Now it seems to be that it's breaking up. And my deal is that I took the responsibility and, you know, with everything going on, to still buy a home here, and I'm being held up to my responsibility. And even though I don't know what's going to happen within 2 or 3 years, I'm still liable for this property where I reside in. And I think that Mr. Patel should be held up to that responsibility too. And that's pretty much all I got to say, but I just, you know, wanted to share with you guys how I felt.
All right, thank you. And so I don't see any other hands up from people who have not yet spoken. So I'm going to close public comment. And I'll go to my fellow council members for their comments. And this is, you know, no decisions are being made here at this committee. We're really just giving our opinions about the matter that will be then forwarded to whenever this comes up before City Council. Are there plans to bring this on a certain date right now?
No, not at this time. We were waiting for the feedback from this committee before we continued to have any additional ongoing conversations with the parties. And then if, you know, depending on the feedback here and the direction, staff will continue to do that, and we'll bring forth something for the full council to consider depending on the feedback here.
Okay, all right. So I'll go to Councilmember Mendel then to start us off on that.
Thank you, Mayor. So to staff first, to Sarah first. So the condition number 2, you know, it's rather short. And so I'm trying to get a sense of how that would work. Is there a time limit to it? Is there a date certain by which, if the hotel isn't under construction, that the, you know, that clause kicks in and the money transfers? Is it open-ended for 30 years? What, can you talk a little bit more about how that is structured, or how it might be structured?
Are you talking about the money that we hold in bonds for the improvements, or I just want to make sure I understand what you're referring to?
Yeah, in the staff report, condition number 2, or item number 2, is the $5 million bond. So
Yeah,
that's what
so when you just for education purposes, when we are processing final maps, and before they go to council, there are a set of improvement plans that are submitted for review by various city departments. And then there's a subdivision improvement agreement that is entered into by the developer. Those improvements are outlined for, you know, what the on-site improvements that are required, whether they're roads, utilities, et cetera. And then there's an estimate for those, and then a bond that stays on file with the city until such time as all of those improvements have been made and then inspected and then signed off. And then the developer normally is requesting to be released from those bonds. Typically that would happen at tract acceptance. They would receive a refund of that bond. I believe what is on the table for your consideration is that the developer is indicating that they won't ask for that we would be able to retain that bond money for a certain period of time. There are obligations they've got to pay on those if they're not released. So there's additional obligation, and I'm sure Mr. McKay could speak a little bit further on that if you'd like, but the deal is that they're saying they wouldn't request that to be refunded, that the city would hold that. But the idea behind these bonds are that the city would have them in the case that, you know, a developer defaulted and didn't, you know, do all of the on-site improvements, then that money is there for the city to complete those improvements that were previously envisioned. That's not the case here. They are making all of the improvements, and they would be technically eligible to have that be refunded at tract acceptance, but they're suggesting that we could hold that until such time as plans could come forward, either for an alternative commercial development on that frontage, or until the hotel is developed as originally envisioned, or some other agreement or some other suggestion that either council or that they would make. But that's what they're suggesting.
So we would hold it forever until something is built there, at which point, whether it's 6 months from now or 60 years from now, we would give them the money back.
Correct.
Yeah, that doesn't strike me as like the kind of condition that has enough teeth in my mind. At some point, if for non-performance, that money needs to come to the city and needs to be permanently and finally taken away from the developer. That's the only thing that's going to provide enough teeth to make it worth.
But I think what
giving
Sarah's
us,
suggesting is that that's the way it works. Is the city has the power to call the bond if a condition of that bond is not met. So that's sort of the teeth that come from something like that.
I think if I could just jump in here, I think what I hear Councilmember Mendel saying is that there might be a term or a time limit associated with that. So the performance, usually there's an obligation to perform by a certain date. So at what point would we be able to call in those bonds to then, have, and so I think, to be honest, I just want to say that we're still have to negotiate. These are kind of conceptual ideas. So I think if your feedback is we need some sort of performance milestone date or something associated with those bonds, then that would be something we'd have to go back and probably negotiate with the developer.
Yes, you got it. You get what I'm going for.
Yes.
There's teeth to it. It needs to be 100% clear, and there needs to be as minimal room for litigation as possible. What I don't want is, put a 5-year term on there. 5 years from now, there's no hotel, and the developer sues us saying, well, we want 3.8 million of it back because we built the roads, we built the park, and the 1.2 million. I'm making up numbers here. 1.2 million represents our share of the obligation for the hotel. No, it needs to be clear that the entire 5 million or whatever the amount of obligation has been transferred to the hotel and is 100% contingent upon the hotel being built or some alternate agreement being reached with the city.
Mm-hmm.
Potentially for a different.
I think that's really good feedback. And I think we haven't spent a lot of time getting into the weeds until we got this high level feedback.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to negotiate here. I'm just trying to give you a sense of what I would be expecting. The second thing worth noting, and especially to some of the residents, so that hotel, it's not just a hotel. In case you're not aware, there's also some retail along the frontage of it. So I would envision something like a coffee shop, a restaurant, maybe another couple of shops that would serve hotel guests, but also all of you who live in the neighborhood. So you'd have a place that's within walking distance where you could go and get a cup of coffee, maybe grab a bite to eat, that kind of thing. So that is part of the plan for the hotel. It's my understanding that that's part of the conditional use permit for the hotel and certainly part of the vision that the city has for it. So let's not lose track of that. And that doesn't get built unless the hotel gets built because it's integrated with the hotel building. So just to be aware of that. And it's, so the question to Mr. McKee, does your company have the right to claw back that property? I understand that you don't own it, but it was also my understanding, I think it was Mr. Derby who mentioned this to me. I hope it's okay that I'm mentioning it here. That I think that there was some mechanism by which you could claw back ownership of it for non-performance by Mr. Patel if he's not able to proceed. Am I understanding that correctly? You're muted, Charles.
There is a limited right in our sale agreement when we sold the property to repurchase the property. So that does exist. It's the conditions under which we can actually make that repurchase happen. There's a sort of series of them there, but it was something that we had negotiated with Manchester in part because we had concern, as we always do. We're putting ourselves at risk. We have a condition of approval. We're selling property to another party. We don't control our destiny. It's a tricky sort of situation. I think for them, if we did have to execute that buyback right, it'd put us in an interesting spot because we would be we'd be much deeper in and still not see a pathway out. But it would certainly at least gives us some,
It's okay. Sorry if I'm putting you on the spot, but I just wanted to make sure that it was on the record that you're not without any leverage, right? Since the city's leverage is over you, and that you have potentially some leverage over the.
Yeah.
And so it's important to note that. So I want to see the hotel built. I still want to see the hotel built. I believe it is the right component long term. I think it will serve the city well. It will, the market will rebound. It was extraordinarily strong, the hotel market in Hayward, especially during the week. I understand that, COVID is a temporary change, fully acknowledge that, but COVID's not here forever. And it is my firm belief that the changes we've seen during COVID are going to be largely temporary. And what I mean by that is we're not going to suddenly stop traveling for business. I work at a company where we're doing all kinds of Zoom meetings right now, and we're all screaming about the need to get back to traveling again because we're sick of trying to communicate with our coworkers over screens like this, because there's so many things that you can't do. So there will be a rebound. It will be 100%. I don't know, probably not. Will it be more than, will it be a significant rebound? I believe firmly yes. And so I want the hotel built. It is important to me that we maintain the leverage to get that done. Until and unless some better plan is agreed to. Is the 5 million enough? It's potentially, possibly, if it's clear. And I've already articulated that. And Jennifer, I think you're clear on what I'm looking for. And I do think that if it's going to be multiple years, let's say that this moves forward and there's some agreement to let the houses be built with some other set of conditions that hopefully ensures that the hotel is eventually built. Let's suppose that is approved. As part of that, I would want to make sure that we're making it really clear that the park needs to open, not when the hotel is done, but before that. And that the access on Toronto needs to open, not when the hotel is done, 2 or 3 or 5 years in the future, but as soon as the houses are constructed. So I would provide that as a strong suggestion or direction to staff to work out whatever conditions are needed to make sure that happens. Because, if we proceed with building the rest of the houses, then at that point, the neighborhood should be complete. And yes, there'll be a parcel in front that's vacant until the hotel is built, but the park should be available. Access to Toronto should be available. The neighborhood should feel complete to the residents who are there. There should not be construction and temporary fencing blocking people from accessing parts of that housing portion of the development. So I can't see Sarah, but hopefully Sarah and Jennifer are like clear. Okay, all right, thank you. That's it for me. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. The only thing you can get to is the temporary use of the space. So I'll go to Councilmember Salinas, who had said earlier he had some ideas about that, but go ahead.
So I just want to be clear. So Al, you want a hotel in that space? Just a couple of comments. I agree with Al. I think the neighborhood, I want to be clear to the neighborhood, because I know we have some callers on the neighborhood here, is that, we're not going to let go the expectation of a hotel there. And I think, and I hope through what, I hope from what you're reading in Councilmember Mendel's voice, and in my voice, and I would assume with the mayor's voice, and I have personally spoken to the developers, and the expectation is to have a hotel there, and up until March 16th, you know, that expectation was there. I mean, we were on track to do it, but you know, here we are, and you know, and we're confronted with these challenges. If anybody said council work was easy, you know, they're absolutely wrong. But these are the environments that we make decisions in, and so I just want to be clear to the neighborhood, we're not going to let that go. I'm certainly not going to let those expectations go, and so I want to be clear with the neighborhood. The other thing is, you know, will the hotel industry, you know, or let's say, will the hotel industry bounce back in Hayward? I think so, particularly there on Mission Boulevard. I mean, the university is not going anywhere, you know, and as soon as the university opens up again, which, you know, I think next semester we're going to be online learning again, but I mean, once athletics begin to open up and, you know, teams begin to visit and, you know, we start playing games again, you know, we're going to start to see a lot more hotel traffic along the Mission Boulevard corridor. And so you know, I'm optimistic about that. But I'm also a realist, and I agree with some of the comments. You know, I think 5 years is a little too much. You know, I would think 3 years. I know we've sort of been talking and throwing around a number of 3. You know, with or without a vaccine, but you know, I do think we can at least keep our eyes out for the next 3 years. Whatever we do on that space, and I agree with the neighborhood on this, and I think it's been said in other places, is that there has to be a direct community benefit to what goes on. And if it is pop-ups, I share Meredith's comments, Ms. Walker's comments about, you know, not necessarily traffic, but traffic's important. Not necessarily traffic, but security, right? Keeping it safe, having, you know, there's going to be a lot more foot traffic and people coming and going in the hours of non-operational hours. Who keeps an eye out over there? Will we have cameras, or what kind of sort of, you know, how will we keep the space secure, safe, clean, and you know, and when it's open, that it's a fun place and it's a decent place to go. Well, not decent, but it's a great place to go. So that I want to be clear. So the fact that we really be mindful of the benefit to the community, benefit to the neighborhood that this sits in is important. But lastly, I do want to say, I like the idea of, you know, of some kind of a, you know, food commercial open air marketplace, you know, kind of pop up. I think, you know, I think there are enough folks, you know, of course there's the east side of the railroad tracks, but also on the west side of the railroad tracks, as I know there's a couple of catwalks that come across the train tracks that folks from the Winton area can walk over and you know, hang out and, you know, and participate and engage. So, you know, I like that idea. I don't want to get too much into the weeds of it because I know staff is going to work out all the details, but at least, you know, that seems to be one of the most viable plans, at least in the near future. In the near future, I don't know if there's a bus stop there close in there, but perhaps we can put some kind of a, you know, make sure we think about public transportation. You know, make it easy to go in and out. You know, bike racks, and you know, so forth. But that's where I'm thinking about this right now. So, and with that, I'll let the mayor speak.
Okay, great, thank you. And yeah, all of that. I really agree with both my colleagues here, but I just wanted you, you know, certainly yes, we would like to see a hotel, and if it means we have to wait a period of time to see if that's going to be viable before we make other plans for the property, then I think we should do that. Nobody could have predicted what we're in right now, and nobody really knows when we're going to be out of it. And I agree, though, that people, while there may be some permanent changes that come from what we've been going through the last several months, people are really wanting to get out and about again. And I think we've all discovered how important human contact really is. Even though we can communicate like this without it, we can get our work done, but it's not the same. And all of, I don't really know anybody who doesn't want to go back to. Although I do think maybe, there will be more Zoom, but that was happening before anyway. That was already happening in the corporate world, but people still are going to want to travel. And so I do think, yes, we want to make sure that we maintain the leverage with the bonds, and I think staff has a direction. That money, though, is not something we could actually use right now to augment whatever we're going to do, right? That's not the idea. It's just that the developer doesn't get them back until certain things are met. So the 1 million, on the other hand, is something we can use, and we could use to help whatever whatever happens on the space. I agree. There should be some benefit for the community. And in fact, I think for the community, there is definitely a benefit to activating the space with a temporary use rather than just fencing it up, because we all know what happens in that case, and we don't want to see that happen there. It will be much safer for the community if if it's being used as something. And I think that has to come with some element of security as well, during the times when the whatever activity it is isn't occurring. I agree, and I think I understand that the other things that were talked about here, the park and the access, can all be done if we grant the if we say, yes, we'll agree to these terms and you can go ahead and finish the houses, that the plan would be to finish those other things. Is that correct, Mr. McCaig?
Yeah, so just to what Sarah had shared, the park is complete. It's been complete for some time.
Yeah.
The access is complete, but given where there's remaining construction to occur, per the building department and public safety, that access has been restricted to both the park, So
once you are allowed to complete the building of the houses, which you want to do and will do as fast as possible,
those open up.
Those components will be there. Okay, so I think that's important. I think it's important to have continued discussions with the community that's there, and about what they would like to see. But I did hear most of the people saying they like that idea of the pop-ups. I had been thinking of a recreation use, some kind of recreation. I think of things like bocce ball, or there's a new kind of golf, maybe, that's I don't know. I mean, I don't know what people are doing for those kinds of recreation. My husband would say set up a bunch of ping pong tables, probably, but I had thought of some recreational use, because there are obviously families and kids in the development that could use something like that, and maybe that goes with some of the other uses that we're talking about. But also, it occurs to me that there are restaurants going out of business right now because of COVID. Restaurants will come back. People like food. They need food. They don't always want to cook it themselves. I think restaurants will come back. They're suffering now. It may really be an opportunity for some people who, are restaurant owners who haven't been able to keep their, who have been leasing space, who haven't been able to keep it going, to want to, try some concepts there. I mean, that might, I have to leave it to economic development to say whether that's viable. Have a lot more planning to do on that. But it needs to be something. And I think that to the extent that we could use, we as the city could help out with some of the money from the $1 million part to help activate that space in the interim, it would be a good thing for everybody. And I think as far as, you know, the idea that that would draw people coming through the community, I don't know that would happen. I mean, I think there, you know, we would have to see that there was some kind of adequate parking, but it's a big space. So, you know, for people who wanted to drive, but then there is also good public transit and people within walking distance. I would think the community itself would be, you know, some of the biggest users of whatever, you know, of that kind of a thing if we put it there. So I would certainly, and I don't think it's a popular idea with council to entertain the idea of gating the community. So someone mentioned that, but I do think we need to work with the community to make sure that whatever is there is going to be a benefit, not a detraction in the short run, and not, you know, cause any problems for that community. So with that, do you think, staff, you have this feedback that you wanted from us?
I could just, I mean, maybe Sarah wants to, but I just want to make sure that what I'm hearing is that the council committee is in favor of the bullet points that are in the staff report with two kind of additions. One is that the bonds have some sort of time frame associated with them or some sort of performance kind of schedule. And then the second thing, that there's a little more detail around the temporary use of the property in the interim. Is that correct?
From my standpoint, Mark and Al?
Yeah, I mean,
and we may need a little flexibility, because as we negotiate and get into the actual agreement, there probably will be some things we didn't anticipate or realize, but I think that's great direction for us.
Okay.
I would say the only other thing I heard was just making sure that that what goes hand in hand with that is also the ability to have the access off of Toronto and the park actually then available and open for the community, the residential community there in the development.
Mm-hmm.
And also just one last thing is, you know, and I know, you know, Mr. Derby and the others are thinking about this, but please keep the neighborhood in the loop in all of this. And I mean, I don't know how often you communicate with them, but you know, just make sure the neighborhood is in the loop. Make sure the neighbors there know what's going on, and you know, and they're, you know, they know what's going on. And staff too. That's it.
You know, on that same note, to the folks in the community who are on this call, you know, I came out a month ago or so to talk to you about this and had 20 or 30 folks that were interested. I'm happy to do that again. I'm sure that my colleagues would be willing to do that as well. So feel free to reach out to us at any time that you want to organize a meeting to give people an update and hear back from us.
Yeah, we might organize sometime in the next couple of months a city hall to you via Zoom with the neighborhood, maybe to talk with them.
Yeah, Mayor, we're happy to do that. So we'll figure it. We can
Our
arrange
city,
something.
Ms. McAdoo piping in there, and thank
Yes.
you. Okay, all right. So with that, are we ready to move on to the next item? All right. Well, thank you all. It's been a difficult issue for all of us, and I think that we're better working together to try to come up with mutually satisfying solutions for it. So thank you for hanging in there with us, and we promise to do the same, and we'll get somewhere, and hopefully look back on this many years from now and hotel standing on Mission Boulevard.
I think there's a lot about 2020 we're all going to want to look back on and say, glad it's over. Thank you guys for your time. Appreciate it. And we'll look forward to connecting again soon.
Great. Thank you. Okay. So now we're going to move on to another review. This is of the Mission Village project modifications, not to be confused with the Mission Crossings project. But anyway, so item number 3, a review of the Mission Village project modifications. Who's going to lead us on that? Ms. Bowser again?
Yes.
Okay, great.
I'm just going to quickly share my screen real quick. Hopefully I can get this to work. So let's see. So hopefully you guys can see the quick PowerPoint. So just as a reminder, this is a project at the former Holiday Bowl site that involves 72 townhomes and a commercial building at the corner of Mission and Industrial. This was recently. The entitlement was recently extended. Demolition is underway at the site, and they are moving very quickly towards trying to get the final improvement plans, final map ready to go that will be presented to council in early 2021, and then be out there making improvements. One of the challenges that they've been experiencing is related to the commercial building, as you probably are aware, and some of the impacts that COVID has had on the success of retail in general. And there's an interest at this point to make some modifications to that frontage, that corner. So to give you just a brief conceptual layout, they are looking to make a modification to allow and provide a drive-through aisle for what would be one of 3 future tenants in this space. This commercial space was always envisioned to be demised and create 3 separate commercial tenant spaces. One of which there is the proposal to allow a Starbucks in one of the spaces, but Starbucks is really anxious and would like a drive-through in order to allow for them to be successful, especially moving forward. The other 2 spaces would remain without drive-through. So this is just a drive-through so that Starbucks would be able to be to have what they need in order to be successful. The other 2 spaces do not need drive-through, and they will be other uses, other retail uses at this corner. This is in concept now. This has not been formally submitted for a conditional use permit application, but would need to do so depending on the feedback we get from this committee. But they'd be looking to make that modification in order to be successful. One bonus is if this is something that council would be supportive of in creation of a drive-through here, then they will make that application. And the other bonus is that this commercial building will be timely constructed as we are constructing the residential on the balance of the site. So we'd actually get, we'll actually realize this full project, which would be a win for this community and the city as a whole that has been staring at a vacant and dilapidated site for quite some time. With that, I don't want to belabor this too much. I just really want to get some feedback from the committee about whether or not there is any support for adding a drive-through to this building. I'm going to stop sharing, but I'm happy to put this back up if there's any additional questions related to this.
Oh, just keep it up for it. Just
Okay.
keep it up.
All
for
right, I will do that.
Because I have, first of all, put up the initial view of this project that you put up right at the beginning.
Okay, hold on. See if I can do that.
I'm going to take a prerogative of asking some questions first here because.
Okay, let me go back to, hold on. See if this will let me get back to the right spot. Can we see that?
Yeah, I want to see the picture, the actual that one that you're pointing your arrow. Yes, that one. So right now, so when I look at that, and then I look at the, I don't see how that works. The plan that you put up about how this drive-through, you would have cars running around the front of this building.
That's correct.
Well, that's horrible. I mean, that just totally, completely changes the appearance of a major intersection of 2 major streets in our community. If that's the only way, I don't. We've had the discussion about drive-throughs and we don't generally want more of them, but I understand right now that we may need to rethink that a little bit. Obviously, COVID has made people want to be in their cars more, but I mean, it will look horrible if you have cars running around that building. I don't even know how that could be entertained, but so that's my concern. And I didn't even really begin to understand, what about you're speaking about a possible second drive-in in another of the buildings?
No. Just one drive-through. There's 3 tenant spaces, 1 drive-through for 1 of 3 tenants.
Well, there's on that map, there is something about alternative menu board, second tenant. What is that?
It's the proposal, as I understand it, is for an extended location. So extended space for queuing to occur on site for the same tenant that would be requesting the drive-through.
Okay. Because up at the top, it says alternate drive-through second tenant. But
My understanding, it was 1 tenant and that was overflow. But Doug Rich from Valley Oak Partners, who was the developer who entitled the project, would be the entity that is going to construct the commercial at the corner, could certainly answer and provide additional clarification. But my understanding is it's 1 tenant.
Okay. Thank you. Do either of my colleagues have questions? Al?
Yeah, I do. So how many parking spaces are lost as a result of this reconfiguration?
I don't know that I've gone into those details. We were here just looking for concept from council.
Okay. Fair enough. And then the previous, it was 8,000 square feet. And so it's down to 7 with the drive-through, right?
That's what I can tell from the concept plans. Yes.
Okay. I don't have other questions.
Okay, Mark?
Well, if there was one thing that I got a lot of positive email about, was the neighborhood wants a drive-through. So, I mean, you know, I don't know where Al's on this. I know Al is close to here, but you know, the concerns that the mayor raised about how the direction of traffic will look like. I mean, engineerily, if it'll work, but you know, I guess I don't have a question. I guess I just want to hear more. I don't know if there's any of the residents around here.
Yeah, I can't see the, let's see. And actually we got a couple of emails.
Yeah.
And I mean, they seem to be saying we want a Starbucks, not necessarily a drive-through. And I'm not even totally opposed to a drive-through, but not the way it is depicted on that drawing. That to me, that would just be horrible.
So
I
have a question. So if it is a drive-through, what would be the pattern of the drive-through? You come up industrial, then turn right into the marketplace, and then you would just, you know, it'd be on the corner here on the south side of the corner. Is that what it would be?
So again, this has not been formally submitted for any sort of detailed review by anybody in the city. So I just want to be very clear here. You know, this is going to require review by our Public Works Transportation Division. They've already preliminary said that additional traffic, on-site traffic analysis is going to be required to sort of look at this and look at those conflicts, look at the conflicts of the driveways relative to the drive-through lane. This configuration in general may or may not be the end of what we see. So I think having been approached by the developer not very long ago, inquiring about this and the desire to sort of be able to move forward and to very quickly be able to develop the commercial component of the project, is just looking to see whether conceptually this committee would be supportive of adding a drive-through to this facility. We'll have to get into the details and the specifics. That'll require a conditional use permit with a public hearing before our planning commission.
Right.
So there's still a lot of process to go.
My concern is this, Sarah. My concern is this: you know, one of my biggest problems up and down Mission Boulevard, and this, I mean, when I say Mission Boulevard, I'm talking. It starts on Foothill at the where Lincoln Landing is, all the way to the border of Union City, Hayward. My biggest problem is all of the entrances to the businesses, not all of them, but for a lot of the big businesses, all of the entrances are in the back. So when you drive up Mission Boulevard, you're staring at the back door of everything, the backs of the entrance, or, you know, everybody uses the back of the building to enter, and the front of the building is just, you know, idle. It just sits there empty. But then here you're going to have a situation where you're going to drive down Mission Boulevard or industrial, and you're going to have, and I understand that these are just temporary, conceptual, whatever you want to call them. But then, you know, again, you're going to have, we're going to be looking at cars instead of people sitting on tables enjoying, you know, the 80-mile-an-hour traffic down Mission Boulevard. And so my concern with this right here is, I mean, I don't know how they would do a drive-through in this, but my concern is having cars queued up on the street and the front of the building right here facing the street. Because drive-throughs, I mean, I go through drive-throughs and they're messy, they're dirty, they're messy, and that's going to be what you look at from industrial and on Mission Boulevard, perhaps. So, you know, unless they come up with something really innovative that, you know, maybe puts it on the south side of the building, I don't know. But the way it looks right now, I don't see it looking very clean and appealing to the street. That's my initial gut reaction.
I appreciate the feedback. What I want to share related to sort of one of the comments that you made about the outdoor seating and seeing people out on Mission and Industrial. I don't know if you recall, but this project has a very long history. And one of the, you know, this was a project that went through early conceptual development review with both Planning Commission and City Council before they formally submitted their application and were ultimately approved by Planning Commission. And one of the early concepts was a patio area that was at the corner of Mission and Industrial. And the feedback that they got at that time was, who's going to sit out at a busy corner of Mission and Industrial where it's loud and eat? So maybe you should consider putting the patio or the outdoor area on the other side, on the internal side. And that shoved the building further up towards that corner and put that patio sheltered by the building. And so the outdoor patio that the future tenants or future users of these spaces will have is still intact, and that's on the other side of the building. But I hear the comments about the look and that impact, and so I appreciate that, and we'll keep that in mind, assuming there's support to allow them to submit. And
I bet I was the one that said that, right?
No, I can't pinpoint who said it. I just wanted to give some history and background related to the patio and the I don't think it was ever envisioned, even in the other layout minus a drive-through, that anybody would actually be sitting on the corner of Mission and Industrial. But I hear the comments about the look of a drive-through and that being along the frontage and the messy, or the concerns about those being dirty or messy and what that looks like, as both you and the mayor have mentioned. So I've taken note of that. So I do appreciate the feedback.
If I could just jump in, I think to address the mayor, we're looking at a site plan versus a rendering in the other project. And so it might also benefit the applicant to do a rendering. I mean, and I understand what you're saying, Mayor. It still might not mitigate all the cars are going around the front, but it might be help visualize better what it will look like, and help you have a better kind of idea of what the trade-off there is.
Okay, Al, you have not weighed in, or I don't know. Do we have any attendees who are here for this? We're kind of going off on both questions and opinions here.
So I was not. I only asked questions, but I do want to weigh in after you close public comment.
Okay.
Mayor, I don't see any hands up on this one.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to open and close public comment, and all right, Al, go ahead.
Okay, so couple thoughts. I'm not a hard no, which is a little bit surprising, because the idea of a drive-through there, it's not quite what I was hoping for. So I'm open to it. I have two major concerns. One is the visual corner that the mayor and my colleague, Councilmember Salinas, both articulated quite well. This was envisioned as having rather a striking and attractive view on the corner, a real landmark kind of view. I don't know how, I'm not sure how you achieve that with the drive-through there. So when it comes back to us with details, and I am open to it coming back to us, so I'll be clear about that. When it comes back to us with details, I know I, and I suspect others, will be looking at that rendering. How does it actually look? Is it just a crappy looking drive-through facing a major corridor? Forgive me for being blunt. Or, have we done something to maintain that? Wow, it looks really nice, even though it's a drive-through, right? I'm not sure how that would be done, but I'm open to it being possible. And so I want to see what that looks like. You can screen with landscaping. There could be, some grading. There's a drive-through on the other corner, on the northwest corner. It's a Burger King, but it's sunk down like 8 feet, so you don't actually see the cars. I don't know that that's the solution here, but I'm just offering that as an example that there's ways to be creative so that it's not ugly. So that's the one concern I'd be looking at. And then the second is, as I recall, there were a lot of parking spaces that appear now to be queuing lanes. I mean, we've lost 1,000 square feet of the retail, and it looks like over 20 parking spaces. And that is not a small deal, because the development is already somewhat underparked, and the parking for this retail, as I recall, and it was 5 years ago, but as I recall, the parking was meant for the retail during the day and as overflow for the residences at night, and can have sort of a dual purpose, especially in the evenings when everybody's driven home from work and needs a place to park their third car or whatever. If we lose, half the parking spaces there, then that has an impact. And I know that what the impact will be those cars will come and park in the Twin Bridges neighborhood, because that's a single family neighborhood where there is street parking. And some of my neighbors that are closest to this corner already hate me a little bit, because they're sick and tired of the cars, coming in from outside. So the fact that it's already underparked and we're making that worse is a concern. So I'd want to know what those numbers are. Do we really need that secondary queuing lane, that extra line? Is there a way to configure it so that we retain more of the parking spaces? I am pleased, Mr. Rich, that you're moving forward and you're looking at tenants. I really am glad to hear that. Thank you, sincerely. I want that commercial component, that. Whether I'm on the council or not, I am going to be there when this comes up for every planning commission meeting and city council meeting. So hopefully, this is something that can work, but it's got to look nice. And you remember 5 years ago, you and I talking about that marquee look on that corner. It was something that you advocated for, and so I'm really. If you want to talk about it, if you have some thoughts, I'd be interested to hear them now. If you don't, it's okay. It can wait until it comes back for more detail. But I really will be looking to see how you achieve that nice look rather than just kind of a dumpy drive-through look.
Well, I appreciate that. And I really do appreciate you commenting that, this is not us coming to you saying we want to, we don't want to build this. This is us coming with a viable solution to get this thing built today, which is what we wanted. And maybe it was a mistake. I was pushing staff to come to this hearing. Really, I guess it was to try and just understand, as a concept, would there be any support for a drive-through here? And then if so, what were the comments? And I've heard them loud and clear here. So I guess I'm still trying to get that feel like if the three of you said, look, I think we could support a drive-through in concept, but you have to address our concerns, then from there, I would obviously immediately go back to the drawing board and start working with staff to address these things and see if we can't get you where you need to be.
So I'll say, Doug, that's where I'm at.
Okay.
I'm willing to, consider this or accept the concept, but you got to address those concerns somehow, some way, figure it out. And especially if there's some kind of, if my level of confidence that will actually be built goes up from where it is now, because Doug, that I'm very, very nervous that the commercial component is not going to get built. And so if anything we can do to assure, if there's conditions about the timing, if you get this tenant and this kind of a use, that you can guarantee construction by a certain date, anything that can help to firm that up would be something for which I personally would be willing to accept some other imperfections.
Okay.
That's coming through loud and clear. That's all from there. Thank you.
Mark, do you want to say anything?
Hi, Doug. I just, my concern is whatever, I just don't want it to look like another drive-through, and I think we have enough, if you look through some of the drive-throughs in any city, they're not clean. They got their, the curbside and the side of the building's always black because of the exhaust. And I mean, it just looks horrible. And so, I don't think it's much to expect, great views from the street as people are driving through. And that's my only concern. And, and I think my comments are before still stand. So I appreciate it. Thank you. That'll be it. Nice seeing you, Doug.
Hey, good seeing you, Mark.
All right, I do not think this space is big enough to accommodate a drive-through. And I can envision cars piling up down, industrial, or no, they wouldn't be, they would be, on industrial back toward Mission, or it looked like you had two entrances, one on industrial and one on Mission you were contemplating. I mean, there is simply not room on this property. And it's because, we didn't have a big space. We wanted more of this to be for, some commercial. We wanted a commercial project. You reduce the amount of space for the commercial project to get more houses, which I do understand the economics of that, and we need the housing, but there is just not room on this space to put. I mean, and unless you can figure it out where it's not, going to show a line of cars, and I really worry that there isn't a sufficient space, and that cars may be then, spilling out onto both streets. I don't see how this works. And, staff can deal with whatever you come up with. You've heard our comments, but I'm afraid that you just didn't leave enough room for this kind of development. Councilmember Mendel I was going to say, take the parking away, but he's raised very legitimate concerns about that. And I just don't see it working myself, but you can come back and try, and staff can work with you, but it just, and I understand the climate right now. And what the emails I got from the neighborhood, they'd like to see some kind of coffee shop. They'd like to see a Starbucks, but I just don't see a drive. I mean, we very carefully plan drive-throughs that we do allow in other parts of the city. And there is always a lot more space than I can see happening right here. So.
It's worth mentioning, if I could, Mayor, just the last thought, as this comes up, if it goes to Planning Commission, having people take a look at the Starbucks drive-through by the Costco on Hesperian would be good as a point of comparison. Not that it would necessarily look exactly the same, but just to sort of see what it will look like from the street, because it's a similar situation. Cars on the outside facing Hesperian.
I mean, I'd like to see any kind of drive-through be limited to the back side. If you need to lose the patio, well, that's sad. You know, we could, I don't think it's out of the question. People sit on busy city streets and look at traffic. People are right now are dining on streets where there's traffic going by. I'm not sure that it's out of the question to put a small, you know, eating space out front. It's not ideal, but I would, if there's going to be a drive-through, I think it needs to be toward the back of the property. And even then, I have concerns about whether there really is enough space there, and especially enough space to have entrances to that, you know, to the drive-through on both Mission and Industrial.
I don't disagree with you philosophically, Mayor, but a patio on the corner facing the street, it won't work. It cannot work. I walk that neighborhood every single day. It would be horrible.
Well, one of the, you know, original things was that the patio in the back, I had always thought it would be a really nice if it had a view back toward the golf course, but I don't think that's at all in the plans based on the housing development that's going to be there, right? Is that correct? You know, you're only going to see houses behind you. You're not really going to see back to the golf course.
It was all set up around the Central Park.
So you might, okay, so you would see that Central Park.
You're up at your high point. This is the high point on the property. So yeah, it was, you're remembering exactly what we were doing back then, and that was definitely the concept that we moved forward with.
Oh, okay, so that patio would have some, yeah. I mean, that will be, if you can get something there, you know, that is a nice place for that neighborhood. And
yeah, what we've always heard from the neighbors, right, that we've worked with all this time, is that they want a place to go to be able to congregate and meet with people, which I totally understand and get. And so that led to the emergence of the sheltered patio with the views. That's a substantial patio, which you can see. This is nowhere near just a sidewalk that you're sticking chairs on, and it was designed as such, and that will be maintained. And so I feel like I owe it to that neighborhood for sure to keep that promise to them and deliver that. And so now it's about how do we deliver the tenants they want, because the tenants want a drive-through. And that's not just a short-term COVID impact, that's, you know, a forever impact, I think, because they have to look and say, how do we build a business plan around the fact that even when COVID-19 goes away, what happens when COVID-20 comes? And how do we manage that? Or people don't get comfortable with indoor dining for a long time, or all those types of things. So that's really the genesis. I've made promises to get this thing built right away. We're moving forward on full steam to do that. And the whole project is ready to go. And so, and it's like, well, we got to deal with the realities of what tenants and lenders want, which is to be able to stay open when things get shut down. And that's the genesis of this.
Well, it just, I don't see it looking good, and I don't see it working very well on that size of property, but you know.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. Can you, if you could keep an open mind, if I can try and develop, now that I've got this, and develop some additional plans, renderings, viewpoints, Mission Boulevard, all that kind of stuff, if you wouldn't mind, and let me see. And you may still say, you know what, it still doesn't work, and I totally appreciate that, but I would love to have that shot.
Well, I rarely close my mind altogether, so go ahead.
Perfect, that's what I love.
I understand the dilemma that you're in, I do, and I know we all would like to see that project go forward, but I mean, those cars around that front corner, that is, I'd almost rather see you just scrap the whole thing and build houses, you know, build a housing development, which is what people wanted to do to begin with. But okay. Go ahead and, you know, see what, I mean, the staff has heard our concerns. So.
Okay.
All right. And with that, we're going to move on to our final item, which is future meeting topics. Item number 4. Anyone have any comments about that one. You know, I will say that I don't know if the stuff is still, you know, I see the Plan Bay Area 2050 update, which I think I had suggested. You know, I mean, there are some interesting things that have come up in relation to what has been approved right now, which is the blueprint for Plan Bay Area 2050. And there are some very controversial elements, one in particular being the a mandate for employers to send 60% of their people telecommuting. I think this probably mostly applies to office. I doubt that it applies to a whole lot of businesses, but that probably would be an item of real concern about Plan Bay Area 2050. I don't know, but beyond that, I'm not sure what we would talk about really. Although the planning staff may have ideas about that, or, you know, Jen, but I just thought I'd pass that along. Anyone else have, Al, did you have some comments about the future agenda items? Which I don't think you're going to be with us for, are you?
I feel like I should take a pass. I'm wondering if we're meeting December 7th, though.
I don't think.
We still are on schedule.
Is that planned?
Well, I think we
Okay.
may cancel.
Oh,
We may cancel that meeting simply because I don't know if we will have. It depends on how, you know, if we probably won't have the new appointments made by the mayor to committees. So I think we were planning to look at whether or not to hold committee meetings in December.
So the December 15th is the swearing in for new members. So
Well, I would say if we do have
before that,
to talk about, we might as well go ahead with it. And we'll have Councilmember Mendel will still be a member of council. So
Yeah, I mean, if there's agenda topics, we can still move forward.
actually, yeah, all of us will still be members of council at that on December 7th. Yeah, so we may go ahead with that. All right. Mark, did you have?
Yeah, I just wanted to see, and I don't know if we've been doing this, but have we been tracking expenses or sort of the cost of business of, you know, all of the damages that have been done during, you know, the protesting? And I mean, not associating it with the protests, but all of the, you know, activities and, you know, all of the damages to property. Have we been tracking any of that? And I know tomorrow we have an election coming, and I do not want to sound like an alarmist, but, you know, I'm just concerned that, Mission Boulevard, there's businesses on Mission Boulevard that are, you know, putting plywood on their storefronts, and I'm just curious, are we tracking that? And, you know, I guess that's my question.
I can sort of answer that. Yes and no. Cal OES, after the initial civil unrest, did request from our EOC some estimates of property damage, and so I could follow up with the EOC command structure to get that data to you.
And then in the event that we do apprehend people that are doing damage to businesses, part of their, you know, part of the resolution of those cases, can businesses actually go after those perpetrators and recover costs incurred in the damage, or, you know, recover damages?
I wouldn't have the answer to that one. I can follow up with the secretaries and see what they have to say.
Okay, so I guess my original question was, are we tracking, you know, the damage that's being done in some? But okay, I appreciate it, Paul. Thank you.
all right.
I did have one comment on the future agenda items. We were fortunate enough to find out that the item regarding a community bank, if you may recall, that discussion came up pre-COVID. And it was put on the future agenda item list pending the outcome of a Alameda County study being commissioned by Valle's office. My understanding is that study has been completed and has been presented to the Board of Supervisors. And so I'm in contact with the consultant who has tentatively agreed to come to the CDC to provide a summary of those findings. So that'll likely be the December item.
Okay, good. It'll be good to have, I know, Councilmember Mendel, all of our, all of our input into that. So yeah, that sounds good. All right, any other comments on the future agenda items? Any other comments in general?
No, if we're having a meeting in December, then I'll save some.
I hope that we do. I was going to say if we don't.
Sure, we'll try.
For your service, but committee and in general. But I hope we will see you on December 7th at what then will be your final committee meeting. With that, unless
So I'll save my teary remarks till December. I got another
yeah,
month.
you can save them till December.
All right, I'll put them back.
And after December, you may, and I don't even want to, but all the committees could change. There will be different assignments, and you may be on another committee. So, so we'll see. I may be on another committee. Who knows? But anyway, with that, I hope we will have a meeting on December 7th. One more with this particular committee that's constituted right now. Staff, any other comments?
Just one brief comment, Mayor. The Innovation Awards, if you were able to chance, they pivoted to an online event. Happy to report that Hayward's Peripheral, which you are familiar with, did take home the award for sustainability. Peripheral, as a reminder, does advanced water treatment systems used in the food industry to concentrate juices without using heat. They did move their corporate headquarters to San Leandro, but kept manufacturing operations here in Hayward. So they were happy to represent both cities.
Well, that's great. Are we, usually they're honored at the event, and I guess they were. I actually did tune into that, but I was having trouble. I can't remember what kind of technical trouble I was having, but I didn't really get to see a lot of it. And so, it would be nice to honor them in some other way sometime if we could think about that, maybe even at a council meeting to just recognize them or something. So hear the story. And too bad they didn't have the usual experience of it's like the Academy Awards, but all right. Any other comments from staff? All right. Well, thank you all then. And I'll just say in general, don't forget to vote if you already haven't, which I think probably most of us have already. And a lot of people have already, but I for the first time voted early. Don't usually do it. I like to go. It's going to feel weird tomorrow not to go to the polls, but we filled out our ballots on Monday and took them to the box outside of City Hall and put them in. And we had the tracking tool engaged, and we already have heard that they were received and will be counted. So it was a good experience. If you haven't done that, you can vote tomorrow. There are several places. Check the website. The library is one of them. Just do it. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.